Depends on my wife.
I know.
You refrigerate it.
I know.
It's
A lot of
and the alcohol in there. And
Saturday.
Okay, good afternoon. I'd like to welcome everyone to the March meeting of the AlbanyPort District Commission. We'll go around the room and introduce ourselves. My name is Georgette Steffens. I'm the chair of the Port of Albany.
Hello, Finch, Commissioner.
Joe Coffey, Treasurer. Bill Ring, Federal Marine Terminals.
Bill Hempel, Albany Maritime Ministry.
Richard Leschkevar, Maritime Ministry.
Annette Gasberry, Port of Albany.
Dave Williams, Director of Security for Port.
John Cosa, Director of Operations for the Port.
Megan Daly, Economic Development and Procurement for the Port.
Tony Vassal, Business Development and Marketing Manager.
Terry Hurley, Chief Financial Officer.
Patrick Jordan, Counsel.
Eric Smith, Director of Internal Controls and Enterprise Analysis.
Richard Hendrick, General Manager.
Thank you. I know we have two commissioners that are not with us today, but we do officially have a quorum for our bylaws. I just want to make sure. And then also wanted to welcome Pat to his first official board meeting. You were doing so well, Rich went on vacation, I think, right? But welcome to the team. We're thrilled to have you and are excited about all the things that you can add here at the port. With that, you all have received a copy of the minutes from our February meeting. If there are no changes or edits, I would take a motion to approve the minutes.
Move to approve the minutes.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you so much. And so now we're going to, everyone also received a copy of the tariff submission. Terry, you want to go over that?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. We emailed that document out to you last week. As you know, it's very, very, very voluminous. A lot of pages, a lot of input, a lot of things that go into the annual, or in that report on an annual basis. Since the document was mailed to you, it's not been submitted yet, but we have done some minor changes. We've done some minor changes on, like, staff titles, doing some reclass on financial statements, etc. Maybe just cleaning it up for the final submission. I have been in touch with my representatives from the ABO on a daily basis. So we are planning on submitting it on time. The time is, I asked her the time, because, we have a leap year this year. Really, what is it? Is it 90 days? What? I just spoke to her this morning. She kind of laughed. She says, kind of a good question. She said, Terry, we're really looking at, today or tomorrow to get it in. I mean, that's what we're really looking at. So I plan on, there's some reports today, again, that's going to be approved by the board. That was sent out, I think, in a package on Thursday. That will also be included in the Paris submission. So when those reports get approved, certainly those will be attached to this document and get sent in for further review or analysis, etc. Again, there's one further review. Everyone reviews and reviews and reviews. You can see, I don't know. We'll try to clean up all that. There might be a title change, name, or there's minor things. But there's some reclasses on the financial statements that have been performed since your document was mailed. I'm very comfortable with the document that we will be submitting, and it will be on time, and that's my goal.
So Terry, the one that you had sent out had several of the questions didn't have answers to it that I'd seen.
Yeah.
You've completed those?
Yeah, the thing is, this is an old document that's presented. If you don't have all your attachments on the document, it's not going to accept any of the document. So that's what in fact happens. If you don't have all your attachments that are supposed to be on there, the document won't be submitted. Those things have been attached, will be attached. There's a few more today, and the answers will be completely done. I've had that question. I talked to the person at the state. She said, that's just the program. It's not, everything's not in, like some of the, I think we're going to be approving the statement of measurements, et cetera, that's an attachment. So if you don't have it in the document,
Yeah, but I think like even on the first document, there were like 20 questions that didn't have yeses or nos or non-applicable. Those are things that you've gone back in and
they've been
have
done.
completed.
Yes.
Does anyone else have any questions about the, our Paris reporting or requirements there for Terry? Okay, and so we just review, there's no official approval.
Right.
Okay. As Terry had mentioned, as part of the Paris report that we submit, we review the mission statement and measurements, which is in your packet. This was something that we had looked at and had discussed at our strategic planning session as well. So I know we had looked to update this and revise it a little bit, but I don't think we officially adopted that new mission statement. So this is our current mission statement, and we will probably at a future date have another discussion on maybe a new mission statement for next year's Paris reporting. But does anyone have any questions? So this is just a review, not a
This is just a review, and as you had mentioned, because all this Paris reporting looks at the most recently ended year, this is activity that reflects 2015. So there's one spot where we have to respond if the authority's mission changed within the year, even though we're in the process of discussing a new mission statement or an amended mission statement for the year 2015, the reporting year, it's not changed.
Right. Does anyone have any questions?
Do we need the clause under date adopted where it says review again in March 2016?
If it's for the 2015 year, you
We-
mean?
We do have to review it every year, so this submittal is intended
shows that
to,
we've
that
looked at
statement's
it.
intended to
Got it.
convey to the ABO, it
Got
just
it.
didn't go out
Mm-hmm.
there, it was actually presented and
To
reviewed.
the board.
Mm-hmm. I could send the one that was talked about before again, if that would be useful for our next meeting, but I didn't want to hound. But I could send it again if that would be desired. Okay.
So another document that is required as part of the Paris Commission, right, is the internal control summary
I
review.
just want to
Yeah.
back up a second.
Yeah.
We talked about this last year too, and this is on the performance measure.
Yes.
Again, how are they, not to be asked, this is more of a rhetorical question. I would like to have some discussion on this, as we talked about it at the last meeting, to connect performance measures into the mission. For example, if one of part of our mission is emphasize safety, what's the performance measure for safety? We don't show one.
Right.
And we thought, I'd like to put some meat on that bone at some point.
And that's, now that we're creating a new mission statement, I'd suggest that, maybe some of these performance measures are retained, but, part of the process will be to develop new performance measurements as well. What's here dates back to 2011, at the time this was first required.
So maybe, I think maybe what might be helpful is if staff draft
Right.
corresponding, send it out before the board meeting, and then it can be an agenda item on the next board meeting.
Thank you.
Eric, you want to go through the assessment?
Sure, I don't really have anything to add to what was provided with the packet. This is something that is required as part of our annual reporting, and it's part of Article 9 of Public Authorities Law. We're classified as a covered authority to have a system of internal controls and an assessment of those internal controls on an annual basis. What this document does provides an overview as to various activities that were undertaken this year, focusing primarily on financial operations.
And so, some of these things that you have in here, were they recommendations from, or things that were identified in our financial audited statement? Like the tariff, the 30 days, and Catholic, how did you?
These The majority of these were done through my own testing.
Mm-hmm.
There is an item on here that was discussed with OSC as part of their review, and that was, the point was there was follow-up with delinquent AR and attempts to collect. However, that follow-up was not codified under any written procedure. So, taking that recommendation, a written procedure was developed with boilerplate language to be sent in writing to those customers that are delinquent, and then a prescribed timeline for escalating that. It would first start with the chief financial officer. There's no response there. It might then go to general counsel. And finally being presented to the board. And what this does is basically take the powers that currently exist in our tariff and just putting them in a procedural format. So then when this is looked at again, we're actually then handing something as opposed to using a combination of, well, here's a printed email and this person was called and all that stuff. So it was a good recommendation they made.
I think you also included recommendations that were part of the independent auditors. Too. So I think we're showing
that's correct.
Responsiveness to the auditor's recommendations being incorporated into our controls. I think it's a good addition.
And probably the biggest recommendation they made was engaging in some formal testing of various accounts. Not necessarily. The cash accounts are reconciled on a monthly basis, but to develop a process that the goal is to reduce, ideally eliminate, year-end adjusting journal entries. What that will do then is, on an intra-year basis, the financial reporting that's provided for the board will be that much more accurate because it won't, these items won't be identified at the end of the year.
That's great. Are there any other questions? All right, so Terry, those are all set for you to attach to the Paris
Correct.
report?
Yes, thank you.
So as last month we had talked about, and I think over the last couple of months we've talked about strategic assessment and developing sort of a strategy for growth at the port, both internally and maybe potentially outside of our boundaries. I don't know if Megan or Rich, if there's been any specific things you want to highlight from our last discussion.
I think a couple of the things that we wanted to highlight was, after our discussion, we talked with Louis Berger and the team about the schedule of work that would happen, about the team that would be included, including the Louis Berger would be our contracted team, but that they would include Nathan Associates, the economics team from just outside of Washington, D.C., in True Management, which would help with the project management as well as the local component of it. We looked at this, and I think our discussion focused on how the specialty of the team really was a unique approach to the consulting services and the professional services here. We included that in the resolution that's provided. We've talked with that team. They could hit the ground running in terms of having a meeting planned with all of that team within the next 10 days to 2 weeks if it was authorized.
Any other commissioners have any questions?
The budget to pay for the study is, how are we paying for this?
The source will be existing cash on hand. There's not an allocation in the current year operating budget to pay for this.
Any other questions? You know, I think, you know, as we've talked about what's been happening at the port over the last couple of years, I think this really is the right next step for us as an organization, and the expertise and the specialties that Louis Berger and the team bring will really be beneficial. I know in years past we've had some market studies, and I don't think they did not do what we're really going to be getting from these guys.
From a utilization standpoint, I think this is different than we've ever had before, actually. I think the market study component is in fact unique, that we have not had that. We've talked about what is on site and what about, you know, geographically we could adjust, where this was talking about how could we build the markets, how could we build even commodity or cargo options. How could we look to expand since we're at capacity from a land space, but also from a tenant user component. And also it would be extremely helpful from us from a justification standpoint when we, you know, in the last year or so we have been successful, but we've been requesting funding from the state as well as from the federal government. And, you know, like I said, we've been successful, but we've been talking about pretty big picture proposals, like with the URI proposal, where we were talking about, you know, just under $50 million of a growth plan that was a 5-year scope. We expect that will come up again in the Capital Region Dialogue, and we'd like to be even more prepared and sharper on, you know, work that we've done and on justification for what we could achieve and how we could do it. We were talking about in that URI strategy of substantial investments and also substantial job growth. And so I'd feel more comfortable and I'd be more excited and like to get others more excited by showing a justification of how those jobs could come about and how that building could come about and how we could help elicit partners to do that with us. You know, I thought the team did a good job in terms of the presentation and the work that they've given to us, and even in our work meetings, to talk about it with them. And, you know, we mentioned this last time, I'm sorry if I'm beating the story, but it just was very helpful in one of our meetings with them where they made a proposal to us. Just in talking, that was helpful the next day in a business meeting with a significant customer for us, and in fact, it's helped us kickstart a project that will add customer use in the maritime operation.
Well, so if there aren't any other questions, we have before us Resolution 6-2016, where the AlbanyPort District Commission will retain Louis Berger for professional services to complete our growth plan and market study. And so the resolution resolves that the AlbanyPort District Commission authorizes the general manager to execute the contract to retain Berger to provide the services at a cost not to exceed $220,000.
So,
All in
just
favor?
one quick question, if I could. Do we expect any potential work product coming out of this that we could use for upcoming CFA? Because they're not going to be done until August, and the CFA is probably going to be earlier.
Well, and some of the federal work, the federal grants are even sooner. But in terms of the CFA, I think a component of it, and in fact, we asked them specifically if during the work process, if we could get something that would help justify some of the work we want to do, and they said yes.
Perfect.
But I just wanted to say we will probably be doing a call even ahead of time, probably in the next 5 days with them, and then a meeting. If anybody, you know, if you would like to participate in any part of it, please tell us that. Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second, so all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So in your packet, I know that Rich has mentioned before that the Port of Albany, we're thrilled to join 100, so we are the 101st port that to be labeled a green port. And so this is, you know, something that's really exciting for us. It's something we can use for marketing.
First in New York State.
Oh, and the first in New York State. 101st, and then the first in New York State. So this is something that's really exciting for us to use and to promote and to continue to build green energy and sustainability here at the port. Anything specific that's about? And so another thing that has really been a wild success is Port Industry Day that I know that Tony works on, and I think attendance has grown over the last couple of years. It's garnered incredible press, and it's been a great way to tell our story both of the port and the things that we're doing, as well as the tenants here at the port, and sort of what is happening in the industry. I think one year we did the Panama Canal, and then the other year was the bridge.
Yesterday, today, and tomorrow.
Yeah, so it's very exciting.
Okay, thank you, Chairperson Stephens. You mentioned the effort. Everybody on the staff in some way, shape, or form contributes to the success, or has contributed to the success of Port Industry Day. And you have an item in the packet. If you would pass this out, I'd just like to cover briefly the past, the present. Everyone have one?
Yep.
The first page is last year's theme. Yesterday, today, tomorrow, and our attendance was around 190. So that just gives you an idea of what the concept was for last year and what we brought to the community. And the second page was the item you had in your packet, and it's to save the date. It's one of a number of blast emails that is being sent to numerous organizations, individuals. We have various mailing lists. And if you have anybody you might want to have added to the list, just let Jane or myself know, and we will take care of that. And the last page is what the concept or the theme for the third Port Industry Day is going to be. That you see the Albany Port Railroad engine. We are an economic engine. Then you look at the photo, long shot of the port facilities, regional asset. And then to the bottom right, the global reach in our maritime efforts and so forth. And the one on the bottom left, haven't found really the exact words or whatever to put in there, the overall impact. So that's going to be overall part of it. And then we'll send out another email, probably two, with registration and the agenda. And we're formulating with speakers and the overall program. It starts at 8 a.m. With the coffee, and we end around 2 with the luncheon. And if you have any suggestions, comments, or anything, just let us know.
Yeah, I mean, it is, the last two have been absolutely incredible, and a great way to connect with, our tenants, promote ourselves within the region. With New York, New Jersey was up last year. I mean, it really is a great opportunity for us to tell our story.
And our tenants have the opportunity to exhibit. Many of them do have an exhibit.
Right.
And last year we focused on the Hall of Records, the history of the port. The Hall of Records had an excellent presentation or area. We have ideas for this year. We're waiting for the answers back, so it's a little too early to let the cat out of the bag.
Well, last year we celebrated Cargill's, right, 80th anniversary?
That was 100 and
I'm
something
sorry,
like that.
underestimating
80th
all
or
the-
whatever.
There
They're
was
up
definitely
there.
an
They're up
anniversary, I
there.
remember that, yeah. Was it 150?
Well, I
Last year?
think in existence,
Yeah.
but
80 here, right, yeah. So that was an exciting, so yeah, if you have the ability to attend, please do, and then if you know anyone else who, we might want to make sure we're telling our story to, please. I know Jane can even send you this in a PDF format, just the invitation to save the date, if you want to forward it to
You'll be
anyone.
receiving that as we develop the next one.
All right, so, our annual report, a new logo.
Well, so I just had to tell you this, so, because the board had been involved with the work that we did last year. We did an annual report with Overt Media, and we did a new logo with Overt Media, and the board was involved with that, the survey information, and even meeting and giving input on that logo. And so I think the Addies might be the equivalent of the Oscars in the, I don't know.
In the advertising world.
In the advertising world. And so, all right, bring it down. So, they did let us know, which was, I gotta be honest, hard to hear because we did not go with them again this year. But they submitted, I think, 9 proposals. 5 were finalists, and our 2 were award winners, so we were excited about that. This year, we are nearly concluded with the work, and we have selected an MWBE firm, so we think it will be striking and a good project, but we just had wanted to point out the good work from last year. So thanks for...
Sounds good, that was a great effort. I think our logo is so strong. And, as we talk about the direction of where we're looking to go for our future, I think that logo reflects that and is very current. I think the next thing, though, is figuring out what our tagline is. We had sort of started that.
But I thought it was a good point that somebody had said at the strategic session of, maybe after this work with the Berger team, some of these things will come together. Even that mission statement, we did have a good revision draft, but maybe you want to hold on that until 3 months.
Okay, well, congratulations on your work. That's exciting. So, Rich, are you going to give us some updates?
Yeah, we're working with the AlbanyPort Railroad. Grant season's coming up. We met the other day with DOT and John Gaylord as to the possibilities of repairing a lot of the rail within the port. Obviously, a lot of it is old. We're getting these heavier loads, so we met with some key people from DOT to assist us in preparing for the grant opportunities. Again, met again this morning with John, and he has another customer that would like to locate into the port. We're putting that company in touch with Pat Jordan and John so they can work together as to possibility of bringing them. It was a former tenant that their lease expired, they left, but they want to come back. Moffett Nickel is continuing to work on the engineering of the new wharf and barge ro-ro slip. We met twice in the last week along with Westway. They have indicated that they would like to possibly expand their infrastructure into the new dock. We told them it needs to be done before. The engineering is done. They're working on bringing some new customers and would need some new pipelines that we can get incorporated into the dock work if Westway wants to take the next step. We're still working with Rensselaer Iron and Steel on that dredging project, but hope by the next meeting to have all of those issues resolved. Pat Jordan has been in contact with John Privatera, who is counsel working with us on the Sims project. They'll continue to try and resolve the issues with Kevin Young, who's Sims counsel, so that we can get that property back on the rent rolls. We've had some very good and productive talks with General Electric and Federal Marine Terminals with the prospects of the future shipping and the storage warehouse. Very happy with the way that those have progressed in the last month, compared to the previous 8 months that we've been working on it. We have a tour here Friday. It was spawned off of the exhibit that we put in the Albany Institute of History and Art for the last 6 months on the 50 objects that made this area. We've had interest from them for 30 to 60 people to come down Friday morning and do a tour of the facility. There won't be a ship here, but Bill does have some heavy lift cargo coming in that'll be moved around on Friday, so it'll be interesting for the people to be able to see as close as they'll ever get to any of this. We invited Reverend Hempel and the ministry to participate with us. Maybe they can gather a few more volunteers. And we're working towards Jeff Lumigan from MARAD, Maritime Administration, has advised us the window is open for federal grants. We're looking at it based on the work that Berger will be doing. I don't know the time frame. Sadly, the competition for those grants, they released $700 million last year, but they had about $7 billion in requests for those grants. In fairness to all 50 states, because it's a federal program, they try and spread them out. Last time we made it through the first 2 cuts, but we lost out to a regional operation that put computers in their buses and won the competition. But along those lines, we have another tour coming down, and Carm Bazile from CDPA has been gracious enough to work with us so that we can transport all of the guests on these tours in one bus as we go through the facility. That's about it for now.
Any questions for Rich? Okay, I think we'll turn it back over to Tony and I think Bill to talk about, we had a couple of surprise ships in the last month.
Surprises are good.
Yeah, that's great.
And that's what happens quite a bit here. We're commodity, heavy lift project cargo port, so they're basically inducement calls. But hopefully each of you have the ship's, barges, tonnage, and longshore report and had an opportunity to look at it. Taking a look at February 16, the first chart, total down at the bottom, 5 last year, February, 5 this year, remained even. And if you move down to the bottom chart, take a look at the total. Last year, through the 2 months, 15 vessels and barges, and this year, 11. Where some of the shortfall came in, when you look at the heavy lift project cargo market, last year we had 9 vessels, and this year we had 4 vessels and 3 barges. Shortfall of 2, and that would primarily be attributed to the ending of the Algerian electrification project, which was truly a great thing to happen. Any questions on that page? Then now what we're comparing is a tonnage monthly, and go down to around 3/4 of the way down to the total. Look at 15, we did 31,989 tons. This year we did 58,920, increase of 26,931, attributed primarily. If you look up toward the top, it was a grain ship that was one of those surprises. For 28,365, the 84% increase. And moving on to the third page, the tonnage report year to date, about 3/4 of the way down. 114,546 last year, and 65,099 this year. We're down around 50,000, and 11,000 of that is the grain, and 26,000 in the scrap iron. 43% down. But these are commodities, and commodities don't run on a regular basis, monthly or anything. It's depending on the world market. A lot of things going on out there. China, the dollar up, and a number of different things. So we still feel that this year will be a pretty good year after the banner year in 14 and the outstanding year in 15. We haven't named this year yet. And now, my pleasure to turn it over to our General Manager, Bill Ring of the Federal Marine Terminal, to cover the longshore report and other items.
Thanks, Tony. Just looking at the 15-16 comparison on the left, obviously 15, January, February, we were still in the throes of mega deal, so a lot of activity, large volume ships, a lot of terminal activity, so that's why you've got hours like that. You look at 16, significant drop in the hours, although we doubled up from January to February. Just to give you a perspective, January we had three ships and 3 barges, but you're looking at a low volume cargo, 3 barges and things like that, not much. 85 gang hours on those 6 vessels. Compared to February, only 4 vessels, larger volume, 128 gang hours. So you multiply that by an average of 20 per gang, that gives you the ballpark of man hours. February, we had a little more in the terminal. The rail containers you see out there, we had more of those in February. GE receiving boosted up for ships we had in February and ships coming up. And the wood pulp deliveries also increased significantly from January to February. Preparing for this month, we do have, we have another pulp ship due, we have some more GE barges. One thing to go back to, Rich mentioning the storage warehouse that we're getting for GE, or looking at for GE. Just noting the importance of that as we go forward. They're already beginning to put storage stuff into us. And it's going to become a challenge to presently store stuff that they're giving us already. We have 6 pieces in the warehouse already, another one due tomorrow, Friday, and 6 more pieces due between now and May. And some of them very heavy, so it's going to be a little bit of an engineering feat to figure out how we're going to get them to sit in the present warehouse. And a little bit of a high note, we're preparing for a GE generator next week, going out by barge to Texas. I believe it will be the heaviest piece that's ever crossed the dock.
How much?
904,000 pounds. That's 410 metric tons. I think our record before was 400. I think this will be our heaviest piece. So this is the beginning of next generation for GE, and these are the things we're going to be looking at going forward. Yeah. That's it.
Thank you.
So will you use both of the cranes then for that?
No, that's a floating crane for that. We unfortunately can't do that. I wish we could, but we can't.
We would bring a 1,000-ton crane up from the city for that.
Bill alluded to the wood pulp, and what we do in addition to everything else is we work with our customers, like the wood pulp people, and they have an account in Ohio where it's presently moving by a motor carrier. So we have a meeting with him in December or January, Bill, and we're working on assisting him to identify lower costs either by rail versus the motor carrier, or via intermodal, putting the product in a container here, moving it to a ramp in Massachusetts, and then moving it on to Ohio. So hopefully this is one of the efforts where we will try to reduce the costs so our customers stay here. That's it.
As it flows too, you'll see that we're down right now with grain, but last week we had a grain ship in, so that was an unexpected one, so that'll pop up. And you may have heard back in early March, we had a barge unit leave here on a Friday morning and tragically had an accident down at Tappan Zee Bridge. It had nothing to do whatsoever with any of the work that was done here. When they got the 3 units onto the barge, they made calls a little too late, hard left, and the 3 crew members of the tug, the specialist, lost their lives there. But, all has been, all 3 victims of that were recovered. The tug has been lifted from the bottom of the Hudson River, and the channel is now reopened. They do have a small restricted shipping area. We're going to be coming into this summer with a ballet of ships and construction at the Tappan Zee Bridge. There's going to be periods of time where the channel will be completely closed while they lift into place the new section of that bridge. We're working closely with the Coast Guard and the pilots to make sure that we still move the ships as needed through that construction zone.
That closure went very smoothly when they just had to close it at the accident.
Yes.
I mean, that did not really foul things up.
No, it was, it took longer to get everything set in place, spud the barge down and put the slings onto the tug, and about 10 minutes to lift the tug. But yeah, it was closed for a period during the tidal change, and we had a lot of movements during that time of both grain and pulp that were possibly going to be impacted by it, but they weren't.
Any questions on the financial report?
Yeah, we have one thing for executive session. It would be possible contract negotiation. I don't.
Matters in the appointment of a person in corporation.
With that, I would take a motion to adjourn executive session. Second? All in favor? All right. Which will be Wednesday, April 27th, at 12:30, and then there will be a finance committee meeting at 11:30 that same day. So with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn. All in favor?